College basketball's dean of coaching can be found in Chapel Hill, and today he goes after win number 601. And with a healthy point guard, Kenny Smith, the Tar Heels at times appear invincible. Maryland's Bob Wade has been settling for moral victories in his first year at Cole Fieldhouse. But with jumping jack Derek Lewis down low, the Terrapins are as dangerous a last-place team as you'll find. Today, an ACC David versus Goliath, Carolina at Maryland. Today and tonight, the network for college basketball has a quadruple hoop bonanza, beginning with number 3 North Carolina and the Maryland Terrapins. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our ESPN studios. I'm Tim Brando, your host for this pre-March hoop marathon that we're holding in the month of February. Count them, 4 games all day and all evening long, and we'll take you from the ACC all the way through to an interconference battle between an independent and a Sun Belt team, and then out to the Pac-10 later tonight. North Carolina and Maryland, 2 teams on streaks. Carolina's won 10 straight in the league. Maryland 0-10 in the ACC. We'll continue to preview our game when we return, so you stay right where you are.
Stand by, brakes. Must break ready now, smoke. Right on the line.
General Dynamics, a leading manufacturer of high-performance products for America and the free world.
The first destination of ESPN and Pan Am's World Tour 87 is the Brazilian Grand Prix in Rio. ESPN and Pan Am will take 2 lucky couples to Rio de Janeiro for an all-expense-paid week of fun and excitement at the Grand Prix, April 12th. To enter the sweepstakes, watch Speed Week and catch the winning slogan. Write the slogan on a card with your name and address and mail to World Tour Sweepstakes, Post Office Box 907, Ridgely, Maryland, 21683. If you're one of ESPN's World Tour winners, Pan Am will fly you and a guest to Rio for a week of sunning on Ipanema Beach, dancing at the Copacabana, touring this exotic city, and enjoying the colorful Grand Prix festivities. Pan Am has 2 daily nonstop flights to Rio de Janeiro, each on a comfortable 747. Pan Am schedules and fares to, from, and within South America are the industry's best, making us the first choice to this exciting continent. So get your passport ready and join ESPN and Pan Am's World Tour in Rio.
Madeline Kahn on Having It All.
What is this fascination we have with having it all? Haven't you ever wanted it all? Just a tiny bit. Michelob Light has it all. Superb taste in a less filling beer. But is having it all the answer? Is it really so wonderful to be wealthy, glamorous, and have an unbelievable singing voice? Yes!
Michelob Light, you can have it all.
ESPN's college basketball, North Carolina versus Maryland, is brought to you by Budweiser, the genuine article. Beechwood Age for that clean, crisp taste. This Bud's for you. And by the financial professionals at Payne Weber Incorporated. Welcome back to our studios, everyone. The first of 4 big college basketball games on ESPN today. I'm Tim Brando. Now, we should bring you up to date on what's been happening with these 2 clubs. First of all, Maryland has been staying close in so many games. They lost by 4 to Georgia Tech in a game you saw here on ESPN earlier in the week. Bob Wade's club is on the horizon. It's obvious that this team can win a few basketball games, but they haven't been able to do it in the ACC as of yet. And since Carolina's lost to Notre Dame, they have beaten the likes of Wake Forest only by 9, and Virginia at home in the Dean Dome by just a point a week ago. So the team that looked invincible at one time is now looking a little bit more mortal in recent games. So we'll see, and we'll have a further preview of that game in just a few moments when we take you out to the Maryland Cole Fieldhouse. At halftime, we'll bring you up to date on other college basketball games that have been played today. We'll have highlights and scores for you, so you can stay tuned for all of that. Games, big games, like the one between Illinois and Iowa, Clemson, Virginia, and Kentucky and Florida. Highlights of all of those games and scores as we continue to update you here in our ESPN studios. We're only moments away now. Maryland at home against number 3 North Carolina from the Cole Fieldhouse. Stay with us.
Libraries, your mind flight passport. Look into the past, step into the future. Now departing into adventure, travel, and places unknown. Discover history and the wonders of science. Calculate, assemble, and process information. Libraries, departures daily. Reservations not necessary.
A troy pound of gold, grand prize at the Mate Show in Billings at the Metro, February 19th, 20th, and 21st.
Montana Agri-Trade Exposition.
For some of life's battles, you need an army, the Salvation Army, for victory over alcoholism and drug abuse, over hunger and despair, for times of crisis, for times of joy, for security, for love, for more than a century, the Salvation Army.
Welcome back. As we've been telling you, the Maryland-North Carolina game, the first of 4 college basketball games that you'll be seeing today and tonight on ESPN. Let's bring you up to date on those other games that we'll be seeing a little bit later. Number 5, DePaul, armed with its 22-1 record, will be at the Birmingham Civic Center to take on UAB. Our telecast begins at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time following Scholastic Sports America. Now, following that, we'll be taking you back into the ACC, a must-win for North Carolina State, sitting 13-11 against another team on the NCAA bubble, Georgia Tech. That game will be in Atlanta beginning at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Then we take you out to the Pac-10, where Stanford will be taking on Washington, 2 clubs that are playing 500 basketball in the Pac-10 and would like to get in March form as they head for their first Pac-10 tournament in a long, long time, the Cardinal and Washington. Now let's bring you up to date on some scores that have been completed throughout college basketball today. Iowa beat Illinois by a score of 66-61 today. Big day for the Hawkeyes at home, rebounding from their loss earlier in the week to Purdue. And Virginia called a timeout with the score tied at 90 with 4 seconds left. They were out of timeouts. A technical foul was called. Clemson went to the line and iced it. Number 12 Clemson with a 94-90 victory in the ACC. We're going to take you out now to our telecasters for tonight's game, this afternoon's game, Marty Brenneman and Lynn Elmore.
The horn is sounded here at Cole Fieldhouse as the clubs retire to their respective benches. We welcome the folks watching our telecast throughout the country on ESPN as the North Carolina Tar Heels take on Bob Wade's Maryland Terrapins. Let's go to public address announcer Nick Cavalakides for today's starting lineups.
We're about to join a national television audience. Let's give the country a great Maryland Terrapin fan welcome right now. From the University of Maryland and Cole Fieldhouse, our starting lineups. For the Tar Heels of North Carolina, from the Queens, New York, a 6'3" senior guard, number 30, Kenny Smith. For the Terrapins of Maryland, from Hammond, Indiana, 6'1" freshman guard, number 11, Keon McCoy. From Carlisle, Pennsylvania, 6'3" sophomore guard, number 14, Jeff Lebo. From Knoxville, Tennessee, a 6'4" sophomore guard, number 21, John Johnson. From Durham, North Carolina, a 6'5" senior freshman, number 43, Curtis Hunter. From Molar, South Carolina, 6'6" sophomore forward, number 23, Dave Dickerson. From Kohler, Wisconsin, a 6'11" senior forward, number 24, Joe Wolf. From Hyattsville, Maryland, a 6'6" freshman forward, number 44, Steve Hood. From Ashley, Pennsylvania, 6'10" senior center, number 35, Dave Popson. And from Temple Hills, Maryland, a 6'7" junior forward, number 33, Derek Lewis. In his 26th year at Carolina, head coach Dean Smith. In his first year at Maryland, head coach Bob Wade.
Now you saw the two coaches exchanging cordialities, and there are three important folks who will be working it today. That's Lenny Wirtz on the left, Jim Rife in the middle, and Nolan Fine on your right. And taking a look at the matchups. One more look at how they will start today. Smith, Lebo, Hunter, Wolf, and Popson starting for North Carolina. J.R. Reed not in the Carolina starting lineup. Tian McCoy, John Johnson, Dave Dickerson, Steve Hood, and, of course, the big guy in the middle, Derek Lewis for Maryland. So J.R. not starting, without question the best freshman player in the Atlantic Coast Conference, and at least at the outset, Glenn Elmore, Dean doesn't have him in the lineup.
Well, I think Dean Smith is looking to match up with Maryland's athletes. Maryland doesn't have the size up front to match Carolina, but they have some quickness. Here, by starting Curtis Hunter, they can at least match up with the Dickersons and the Hoods, and they've got J.R. Reed as the hammer if necessary.
Well, with J.R. not in the starting lineup, that gives Carolina a fairly potent bench. You see what happened the last time as Carolina blew him away at the Smith Athletic Center, and Dave Dickerson hauls down the opening tap and puts it in the hands of the point guard, freshman Tian McCoy.
Maryland's going to have to get off to an excellent start right now. They're going to probably be patient enough, work their offense, make Carolina play some defense here.
Derek Lewis whipped Joe Wolf, got some offside help from Dave Popson, and as he hauled down the rebound, reaching in to commit the foul, apparently Steve Hood.
Well, it's a good shot by Derek Lewis, who put the ball on the floor. He made Wolf and Popson recognize that he's going to go to the basket every time. But Maryland, a little anxious here, is committing the silly foul at the moment.
Foul on Hood. The freshman, Kenny Smith, brings it up for North Carolina. We are just underway at College Park, Maryland's Cole Fieldhouse.
And defensively, Maryland has opened into that triangle and two where the guards are covered.
Wood with a bank shot, and Joe Wolf got the roll, and North Carolina takes a 2-0 lead.
Carolina not really fazed by that defense right now. Just moved the ball around their regular pattern and got the shot.
Carolina by 2. John Johnson matched up against Jeff Lebo. Looking to get it inside, but right now Wolf covering Derek Lewis like a cheap suit. Now they go back out front to Tian McCoy again.
Well, Carolina amazes you with the ability of the big men to play outside.
And one of their big men just committed a foul, Dave Popson, off the ball. There you see Dean Smith hoping to begin his second half a dozen today after getting win number 600 on Wednesday night, becoming only the 10th coach in Division I basketball to ever achieve such a lofty plateau. And you also got to look at J.R. Reed, who plays a role at the moment of spectator. On the stop and go, the jump hook by John Johnson, and the tip. Dave Dickerson had went over the backboard, and they say Carolina ball.
Well, it's 2 shots so far that the Terps have gotten inside the lane, and that's part of their game plan. They're going to try to work the ball, get people free, and get those high percentage shots inside, forcing Carolina to play the D.
You note the wrap on Kenny Smith's left knee after having gone arthroscopic surgery and then that miraculous recovery, returning 5 days later to lead the Heels to a big win on the road against NC State. McCoy clears out for Maryland. They loop it in. Derek Lewis with a jump hook, and we are tied at 2 apiece.
Great ball movement by Maryland. Got their break going.
At the other end, Curtis Hunter with a bank shot. And that's the one thing Maryland cannot get caught short in, and that's in that transition game.
Well, they worked on that a lot yesterday in practice. Carolina's a master at the back-at-you type of basket.
4-2 North Carolina, 2 minutes deep into the first half here at Maryland. Steve Hood belly up with Curtis Hunter, lowers his head and puts it on the floor, and the ball tipped out of bounds by Jeff Lebo.
Now, Maryland's going to have to assess the tempo of this game, recognize that maybe they're not spreading the court as much as they should because they want to spread the court, take advantage of the Carolina overplay, look for some back doors, maybe even throw over the defense of North Carolina.
They do it that time, making the inbounds pass to Derek Lewis. North Carolina up 4-2. They go inside for the turnaround. Steve Hood jump shot.
And again, sorry, Marty, again, Maryland is trying to isolate one-on-one situations. They're going to get people in the lane, making the Carolina players play defense alone without the help that they get.
Maryland's Bob Wade wanted a charge or a traveling violation call. Didn't need it because Lebo's called for traveling, and it goes back to the Terrapins.
Conversely now, that triangle and two that Maryland has employed is starting to give Carolina some problems. They find that every time they get the ball in the lane, they're going to be surrounded by 2 to 3 players.
All even at 4 apiece, 17-15 to go. Johnson, and shooting over Popson. Contact, no whistle. Credit the hoop to John Johnson.
And that's what we mean by throwing over the Carolina defense. When they bring all the help players to one side, Maryland's got to look for that skip pass. Throw it over. There's always someone open on the weak side.
Terps enjoy their first lead. Here's a steal by Derek Lewis. 2-on-1 to the breaking McCoy. Laying up and in.
And this is what we mean by the good start. You get the crowd in the game, and Cole Fieldhouse is notorious for an upset. Maryland's on the road right now.
They've run off 6 unanswered points to lead by 4, and without question, the crowd is back into the ball game. Curtis Hunter gives it up to Jeff Lebo. Dave Popson left open from 15, and he rings a bell.
That time, Carolina did what they necessarily have to. Again, they're the back-action team. They'll run the ball back up the court, take the momentum away from you by running their patterns precisely.
4 of the 5 Maryland starters have already scored. Dave Dickerson, the only one who has not yet cashed in, as Maryland now leads by 2 at 8-6. McCoy for 3. Lebo with a rebound. And here comes North Carolina, the lead to Kenny Smith, and a stupid foul by Teon McCoy. His first of the game.
Well, that time Teon got caught outside in the middle of the floor, not recognizing that he had help back, and he actually tried to intercept that pass and committed the foul. Had he known he had some help back, he would have trailed Curtis Hunter. He's going to the corner. You've got the baseline for help as well.
First substitution today for North Carolina, freshman Scott Williams out of Hacienda Heights, California, comes into the lineup, and Dave Popson sits down. That's Williams handling the ball.
Interesting that JR wasn't the first sub off the bench.
Dickerson rebounds the missed shot by Curtis Hunter. 2-point Maryland lead and possession.
Good transition D by North Carolina. They got 4 people in the paint.
Traveling. Good defense by Curtis Hunter. Forces Steve Hood into the traveling violation.
Well, the thing about the Carolina defenders is that they love to get up into your face and prevent you from putting the ball on the floor.
Well, we've got timeout with 15:45 to go in the first half, and Maryland leading North Carolina 8-6. We'll be back after these messages from Natural Lights.
This Bud's for all that you do.
They said this city was through. You said, no way.
Each day the spirit's growing. Your pride is really showing. You make America work, and this Bud's for you.
Here's to you. Beechwood Age for that clean, crisp taste that says Budweiser.
This Bud's for you.
Out here, it's me alone against the course. But in the financial world, you need all the help you can get. You need the PaineWebber Army behind you.
Even golf legends can use some financial backup. PaineWebber is ready to roll, putting all its resources at your command. We believe the quality of life just might depend on the quality of your financial services.
Thank you, PaineWebber. Now that's the kind of army you want behind you.
Let me just run that through the computer for you, sir. Hey, you know I was all set to go tarpon fishing in Tampa, but no. Piedmont starts offering these incredibly low fares, and the next thing you know, they need extra help in reservations. Now, to take advantage of these incredibly low fares, you have to buy your tickets in advance, and I'm telling you, these planes are filling up fast, so you better call Piedmont or your travel agent today. Yes, sir, you just got the last seat on that flight to Tampa. That could have been my seat.
With Len Elmore, Marty Brenneman back at Cole Fieldhouse in College Park. We're 15:45 on the clock in first half action with Maryland in front 8-6. And right now the Terps playing pretty well under that man, Bob Wade, Len.
Well, I tell you, Maryland is doing a good job at slowing down Carolina and getting people back and stopping that secondary break of Carolina's, which means that if they don't get a fast break, they're going to move the ball around until they find an open person.
Joe Wolf not expecting to pass inside from Scott Williams, and the Terps take advantage of it. Keon McCoy calling out the play as he puts his moves on Kenny Smith and now backs off again.
Interesting matchup would be Dickerson and Scott Williams. Scott Williams, although Dickerson's posting now, Scott Williams is not accustomed to playing people outside.
He helps Wolf out on Lewis, and he's still got the bank.
Good strong move, Derek Lewis.
Second field goal for Lewis as Derek tips the ball out of the hands of Kenny Smith, and the Tar Heels will trigger again. Meanwhile, J.R. Reed still on the North Carolina bench. Did not start. Curtis Hunter got the call. First substitution for the Tar Heels was Scott Williams, and J.R. still looking for playing time. As Hunter goes down, the ball, or apparently a travel call against Steve Hood.
But that's great effort by Steve Hood. The Maryland players seem like they want this game. Carolina, as again, they are a very consistent team. They go in every game playing up to their potential. Today, they may be just a little bit lackadaisical.
Wood puts it outside to Jeff Lebo. Trying to run Johnson into a screen. Now they give it right back to Williams, and, well, it looked like defensive basket interference, and that's the call.
Well, it was a late call, Marty, and I think the official from the outside had the best view. Here, Derek Lewis gets away with a foul, got his hands on Williams. But again, from this angle, it's difficult to tell. The outside official has better depth perception.
There's Lewis getting open inside. He hooks it up and in. He's an acrobat. 6 points for Derek Lewis, and 12-8 Maryland in front. That basket credited to Scott Williams on the basket interference call the last time down. And now the Tar Heels will inbounds again as Steve Bucknall, the sophomore from London, England, comes on to replace Curtis Hunter.
That last play was an example of what people are calling a secondary break. Maryland got back on defense in good shape. Carolina, recognizing they didn't have the numbers to go straight to the basket, will spread their players, move the ball along the perimeter, everyone looking inside, finding the open man, making the defense shift. That's a secondary break.
Ranzino Smith also into the lineup for the first time. Right now, Carolina with only 2 starters in the lineup, and Joe Wolf drills one from outside.
And that's the guy that Maryland can't afford to allow to get off to a start. Joe Wolf is a great outside shooter for a big man.
Speaking of shooting, the Terrapins have hit 6 out of their first 9 shots from the floor. They lead by 2. The pressure, Lewis, they find open inside. Fine pass.
That's how Derek Lewis did a smart thing. Found his man double-teamed in the corner, ran to the open spot under the basket, allowed an outlet for his teammates.
Lewis 4 out of 5 from the floor. 14-10, the Terps in front. Bucknall finds himself open. Joe Wolf left wide open again, this time a little bit long, and McCoy has a long rebound. Dickerson.
Slight bit of hesitation, but the Terps are on fire right now. Carolina's going to have to find a way to stunt that.
Joe Wolf misses inside, and in the ensuing battle for the rebound, Wolf charged with a foul.
Well, they got the ball inside in good shape. Joe Wolf going up for the left-hand hook, and he missed the shot. But then, again, out of frustration, when you compound the situation by jumping on someone's back, it never helps. Here, in good shape, Joe Wolf gets the ball inside. Good pass from Kenny Smith. But out of frustration and missing the shot, he's trying for the second effort and was detected for the foul.
I think Derek Lewis had a whole lot to do with him missing that shot, too. When he turned around and started up, there he was.
And on that play, Marty, where Carolina employed the double team outside, you got 2 guards, Ranzino Smith and Kenny Smith, doubling John Johnson outside. Johnson was bailed out by the foul by Smith, but he picked up his dribble too soon.
They got Ranzino Smith, his first, team's third. Derek Lewis, Steve Hood. Even though he missed the shot, once again, good ball movement by Maryland. Ranzino got his man airborne. Looked a little bit hesitant when he got to the top of his jump. Let her fly, and he rings a bell.
Some nights the man puts on a clinic as far as shooting's concerned. Great pure shooter, Ranzino Smith.
Terps lead by 4, 16-12. We've got 12 and a half minutes to go in the first half. Bad pass inside by John Johnson. Kenny Smith trying to beat the crowd, and he just threw up a prayer somewhat off balance.
I believe Ranzino Smith was called for the follow-up foul Again, Maryland was bailed out this time, playing some good defense. It looked like Kenny Smith was hammered inside, but no call. Consequently, Renzino Smith on the follow-up here seems to push off by reaching over the back.
You saw Dean Smith appealing to the officials about the lack of a whistle. And now a foul at this end as Carolina had Kenny Smith ahead of the pack in Maryland, with Tion McCoy committing the foul to avoid an easy breakaway layup.
Well, this is going to be a tough game to officiate. You've got two emotionally charged teams right now. Carolina now picking up the tempo. Maryland is out there reaching, trying to deflect balls. Carolina, that's their consistent defense. The officials are going to call a lot of fouls today.
Bucknell gives it up to Wolf. Right back to the London, England native. No shot. Good defense by Dave Dickerson. Deflection by Dickerson into the hands of Hood. Here come the Terps. Alley-oop too high, and they'll go the other way with it.
But that's an example of throwing over that Carolina defense to try to exploit that as much as possible.
Timeout, 11:49 to go in the first half. Terps lead 16-12, and the question is, where is JR? We'll be back.
Yes. The big news is that I made some very important big deals.
Sir, excuse me, but there's one big deal you haven't made.
Yeah, right. Yeah. You see,
I'm talking about a deal on Sports Illustrated.
Sports Illustrated?
Yeah. A savings more like 50% off the cover price. 27 action-packed weeks for 3 installments of just $9.79 each. Kid, you're a hit. Hit! What about free videotape? The NFL Crunch Course. It's 43 minutes of the NFL's greatest hits. Makes a smashing gift, and it's free with your paid subscription. Free. Plus, you get their 87 baseball preview with schedule and their famous swimsuit issue. Major League! Just call it a toll-free number. You can even use your credit card.
That's right. Get the savings, the schedule, the special issues, and the free Crunch Course tape. That's the big news. Any questions, gentlemen? Where are the phones?
That'll be all right.
Sports Illustrated. Get the feeling.
Call now, 1-800-525-500.
Well, this would be a primetime soap opera in Chapel Hill that would outpoll Dallas. Where is JR? Right now, he is sitting on the bench and has yet to see any action at all, and you really have to wonder a number of things. Is something wrong with him physically? Did he break a team rule? It's really inconceivable, then, Elmore, to me, that he's not yet been in the game.
Well, there's another alternative. That is, he made some disparaging remarks during Maryland's troubled times about the fact that he was glad he didn't come, and it's quite possible that they want to stay away from the detrimental psychological effect.
Good play by Dave Popson. He took it away and stuck it back in for his second field goal. Carolina cuts the deficit to a deuce, 16-14. Thompson runs up on Dickerson. They get it inside, and that time Lewis missed a crip, but a foul charge against Joe Wolf.
Good follow by Derek Lewis. What's happening now is that Maryland is spreading their wing, people, allowing Derek Lewis and Dickerson to do what we call a duck move inside. You step up, get the player on your hip, and go to the basket as Derek Lewis did there. He missed the shot, but he was in great position for the rebound.
Well, we don't have to wait until next week's episode, if you will, to find out what's wrong with JR. He is in the Carolina lineup for the first time as Derek Lewis prepares to shoot the free throws for the Terps.
And, Marty, I'd have to say that my explanation may be the one, because the reception that he got as he stepped on the floor was reminiscent of Cameron Indoor Stadium, and JR has got that fire in his eyes right now.
Well, the young man has proven he got the inhospitable welcome at Cameron Indoor Stadium, played a whale of a game against Duke, got the same kind of reception at Alumni University Hall in Charlottesville, played well on the road in that game against Virginia. And, boy, they booed him big time when he came on the court for the first time here today in warm-ups. Renzino Smith with a jumper. He gets his own missed shot back. He fires it up around, and it failed to go. Reed misses with a tip, and it's controlled by Derek Lewis.
Maryland employed some full-court pressure that time, trying to force Carolina into the quick shot, which they did, and luckily they came out on the right side of it, luckily for them.
Lewis, scoop shot.
That's an athlete, Marty.
He has scored a dozen. And Maryland is in front, 20-14, led by Derek Lewis.
Right now, they're back into that triangle and two. They've got the guards overplayed, and they've got it really clogged inside with Derek Lewis at the point of the triangle.
Thompson with a fadeaway. Position inside by Lewis, creating the foul against J.R. Reed.
Now here we take a look at Derek Lewis posting strong, gets J.R. Reed on the high side, used his body well, but the rest of it was pure athletic ability.
Kenny Smith getting ready to come back in for the Tar Heels. That's Greg Nard just a moment ago entering the Maryland lineup. Sophomore out of Wilmington, Ohio. John Johnson, he had the wide open jump shot and was a little bit greedy. He wanted to get closer and threw up an air ball.
And Bob Wade can't be very happy with that. You're right, he passed up a wide open shot.
Three-pointer by Ranzino Smith.
But there's a man who does not hesitate, and he's the guy that can get this Carolina offense rolling, open up that zone by hitting a few outside shots.
20 Maryland, 17 North Carolina. We're under 10 minutes to go in the half. And Lenny Wirtz signals a 5-second violation. They get the 5-second count that gives the ball back to the Tar Heels and enables Kenny Smith to get back in. Ranzino, or rather Curtis Hunter, also checks back in for the Tar Heels, who now feature, along with Hunter, Kenny Smith, J.R. Reed, Jeff Lebo, and Joe Wolf. Dave Dickerson, Steve Hood. Ivan Powell is now in for Maryland, joining Derek Lewis and Greg Nard.
Substitutions, Marty, are a tribute to Carolina's depth.
2 straight three-pointers, one by Ranzino, one by Kenny.
That depth showed right there. Curtis Hunter can come right off the bench and bury a three-pointer. Here, Maryland's having problems bringing the ball up. Tayon McCoy on the bench right now, and Greg Nard has to be the point guard, and he's not accustomed to that position.
Well, he had some problems in a game that we saw last weekend against Duke when he was forced to run the ball club from that point spot. Tayon McCoy getting a blow on the bench there. Dickerson contact, no whistle, basket. And Dave Dickerson went down, grabbing his right ankle, or his right wrist, I should say. J.R. is hammered at the other end, and he'll shoot him.
Well, on that particular play with J.R. Reed zeroing in for the dunk, it was actually a good play because J.R. Reed's only shooting about 60% from the free throw line. But more importantly, they don't let him get started.
That Maryland foul, number 2 of the game against Steve Hood. It puts Reed on the free throw line, and boy, you really have to search for areas in which this young man can improve in, but this is certainly one of them. Only 59.3% from the free throw line.
And as I say, at this point in juncture, it's a smart play to keep him from getting a thunderous dunk, which could be a spark and wake Carolina up out of this little nightmare that they're suffering.
22-21, the Terps in front. Hunter, Kenny Smith, there's Steve Hood to the breaking Dickerson.
Now that is a clinic on how to handle the Carolina press.
And a steal and a following basket, another one by Derek Lewis.
And what Carolina tries to do is come right back at you, getting the ball in quickly, running it up. Derek Lewis, that time anticipated the pass to the side.
Maryland playing impressively. And they're doing it at both ends of the floor. Hunter drives, rejected by Lewis, out of bounds. North Carolina ball as Derek Lewis comes up with his 78th block of the season.
And Marty, Carolina is trying to solve the mystery of this zone. Here Curtis Hunter penetrates, thinks he's got the baseline wide open, also thinks that he's got one man faked off his feet. But again, we mentioned Derek Lewis in this kind of defense has the freedom to roam. That time he went for the penetration and helped out with the fine block shot.
Tar Heels trail by 5. J.R. Reed around, no good. Tip failing, rebounding inside. Lewis is all over the place. Ivan foul. Derek Lewis had it tipped away by Hunter. Picked up. Kenny Smith will stop and pop.
Get the wide open shot like that, you can't hesitate. Kenny Smith knows how to control the tempo of this game, knows when the shot should be taken. That time made a fine decision. That's almost a layup for him.
Just under 8 minutes to go in the half. Nard cross-courting to Ivan Powell. He's not shy. Tipped out of bounds. Reed, the last man to touch it.
Derek Lewis kind of got knocked away underneath all those redwoods in there.
Well, we've got time out on the floor, and we've got a good one. 7:45 remaining in the first half. Terps 26, Carolina 23.
We're making biscuits every morning at McDonald's on you. We're up at dawn, shoo-ba-dee-doo-doo-wah. Got our aprons on, Popeye, Popeye. We're making up the dough. We throw warm it out, put it in a pan. Nobody makes it
fish biscuit sandwich.
It's a good time for the great taste of McDonald's.
You know, life's too short to worry about impressing other people. I mean, have you ever been really impressed by a person's credit card? What matters about a credit card is how it impresses me. MasterCard gives me what I want, and anything is possible. It goes where I want to go. Could be Timbuktu. When I want, day or night. Don't talk to me about impressions. Give me possibilities. MasterCard. Master the possibilities.
That's the story right now. 26-23 Maryland. Time remaining 7:45 here in first half action. And a fine basketball game it has been up to this point as the Terps hustle back onto the floor. Carolina already out there, and Steve Hood getting ready to inbounds the ball for the Maryland Terrapins.
Carolina's now in their 1-3-1 zone, something that hasn't changed as long as Dean Smith has been here.
Ivan Powell for three. Rough roll that time for the Terp fans.
Got JR inside. Wolf figured that it wasn't a good enough pass, but JR really wants the ball today.
There's JR with a jump hook, and he used the glass to perfection. His first field goal. 26-25.
That time Carolina decided to spread their offense and let JR have the run of the lane, posting up at will, and he was found.
Dickerson. He found himself with the advantage against the smaller Jeff Lebo, and he took advantage of it. Three-pointer by Lebo. The shot counts, and a foul against Ivan Powell.
Well, the one thing you don't want to ever do is foul the jump shooter. But more importantly, more of a sin is fouling the three-point jump shooter. You're giving up a possible 4 points there, and Bob Wade can't be happy with that decision by Ivan Powell.
So a 4-point play in the offing for Jeff Lebo, or is it?
Here he's set, ready to take the shot. Powell is a little overzealous in defending, but again, you just want to put a hand up, make him shoot over you. It's a lower percentage shot.
Joe Wolf looking, playing to Lebo. He wheels inside. Here's JR making his move, and he's starting to warm up now.
Well, the key for Carolina is to get the ball down in the corner, force that zone to come up, swing it quickly, because in this triangle situation, the weak side big man is always one-on-one with the player. That time JR got the ball inside in good shape.
So that turned out to be a 5-point play. The three-pointer by Lebo, getting the ball back on the inbounds, and the bomb by J.R. Reed, and right back at the other end, John Johnson hits a three-pointer.
Can't say enough about both teams. The ball movement is excellent. They're finding the seams on all the pressure and all the zones here.
31-30, and it remains that way as the Poxon jump shot fails to go. Deion McCoy, foul Kenny Smith. He put a pretty good move on Kenny Smith to shoot by him, and Smith grabbed him.
Well, Deion McCoy is getting to be a savvy freshman. He started off a little rocky here, but now he's more or less getting his sea legs here out here playing against Kenny Smith. A nice little stutter step. But one thing I'm noticing, Marty, is that now on the fast break, whereas maybe 5 minutes ago, the Maryland players are starting to be maybe a half step slower now. They're getting a bit worn down as Carolina keeps marshaling in different troops.
McCoy hits the front end of the 1-and-1. Well, turnovers have certainly been critical. Maryland has had 6, leading to only 2 Tar Heel points. On the other side of the coin, 5 Carolina turnovers have produced 8 Terrapin points. Maryland leading by 2, and it stays 32-30 on the McCoy miss.
Maryland now has changed just a bit in that triangle. They're now putting Steve Hood at the top. They left Derek Lewis down low.
Nice soft jump shot by Joe Wolf, who has been getting increasingly more encouragement from Coach Dean Smith to take that outside jump shot. And also to be aware of where that three-point line is when he starts to launch one from outside. That time it was a step inside, and it ties things up at 32.
Again, we mentioned Deion McCoy can't afford to pick that dribble up too soon. He almost got caught for a 5-second call just then.
He plays to Lewis, and stolen, but Lebo kicked it out of bounds.
And another thing that players have to do against Carolina is constantly meet the ball. You've got quick players like Smith, like Lebo, who there steps in. Derek Lewis started to make a move to the basket before he got full control. You do that against the Carolina, and you're going to say goodnight as they're on their way to 2 points.
Deion McCoy has the basketball for the Maryland Terrapins, and Kenny Smith has McCoy. Now John Johnson. I think Derek Lewis had a notion for a moment to try a three-pointer. Instead, he wheels it inside where Steve Hood is hammered.
And there's a pattern to Maryland's attempt to solve this pressure defense. When Carolina sends 2 players to the man at the top, they try to go to the area that he vacated, knowing that a man's coming out from underneath the basket. If they can get it to that man, he in turn, instead of looking to the basket, looks for the open man on the opposite side of the court. They more or less solved it.
Change up front for the Tar Heels. Freshman Scott Williams replacing senior Dave Popson. 3 Carolina players, in case you're interested now, have picked up 2 personal fouls apiece. Joe Wolf, Kenny Smith, and Lanzino Smith. While for Maryland, Hood and McCoy each have had 2.
Again, seemingly because of Carolina's depth, those 2 fouls against Hood and McCoy will loom important as time goes on, particularly the one against McCoy. He's the point guard for Maryland and probably the most important player on their team as far as this Carolina defense is concerned.
Steve Bucknall and J.R. Reed, and steps called.
And we're going to allude to the fact again that maybe J.R. came in here just a little too fired up. Dean Smith recognized it and tried to sit him down, let him get his mind into the flow of the game. Here he walked on that particular move, which he probably didn't have to do anything but look at the basket and take the shot.
Derek Lewis gets by Reed, finds Dickerson breaking on the end line. The follow fails, and Derek Lewis apparently called for the foul, or was he fouled? Steve Bucknall committed the personal for North Carolina.
Well, here Lewis passes the ball, leaves, and takes off for the basket. He gets great underneath position. That time Bucknall was screened away. Derek Lewis, after giving the ball up, did not stand around and watch, but he made his way to the basket. It's a good sign for all offensive rebounders, for the young people out there watching. To be a great offensive rebounder, you've got to keep on the move, and you've got to go to the spot that you think the ball is going to come off.
Joe Wolf back in for the Tar Heels, replacing Bucknall. And right now, Maryland not doing a whole lot to help itself as far as their abilities at the free throw line are concerned. Although Lewis has done very little wrong since this game got started almost 16 minutes ago. 14 points, 3 rebounds, a block shot. And misses both ends this time.
Earlier this week, Maryland suffered in a pivotal situation by not being able to connect on the first front end of a 1-and-1.
3-pointer for Joe Wolf. Dave Dickerson out-jumps Scott Williams for the rebound. Here's Hood taking it to the hole.
Carolina covering the board that time. Here they are on their break again. Kenny Smith recognizes the numbers aren't in his favor, picks it up, and now they're going to look inside. Move the ball around and let someone post.
Maryland leads 33-32. Scott Williams baseline jump shot. 3 minutes and 45 seconds to go in the first half.
Good decision by Tayon McCoy. Slow the tempo down a bit. Don't get caught in a rat race here. Make them play some defense.
Nice pass. What a pass from Dave Dickerson to Derek Lewis.
But even more importantly, Lewis got the man on his back, made a nice pivot to get himself open.
Shot will not count. Referee Jim Ripe had blown his whistle well in advance of the shot by Scott Williams.
And that pass inside on the other end, as we mentioned, was not only a great pass, but Derek Lewis, in turning towards, opening up to the ball, actually made the overplay work in his favor.
That foul was against Dave Dickerson, and only the 16th foul against Maryland, who with 3:29 to go here in the first half, leading, favored North Carolina 35-32. We'll be back.
I'm Jimmy Connors, and it's about time you met my partner, my financial side.
All successful people and companies have a financial side.
Let's go, partner.
But to really be a winning team, you might need some help.
We need some help.
You need Payne Weber behind you for financial expertise, sound advice. We believe the quality of life just might depend on the quality of your financial services.
Thank you, Payne Weber. You're awfully stiff. You've got to loosen up a little bit.
After a day like today, where do you go for some peace and quiet? La Quinta Inn's, just right, overnight.
Time remaining, 3:29, half number one. It's 35-32 as we take a look at that last play and an indication of how well Maryland has been playing so far here in the first 20 minutes of play.
Well, here, Carolina loves to play pressure defense. JR on the top. Nice reverse by Derek Lewis.
Back to live action. Scott Williams, three-pointer by Kenny Smith. Bingo.
Well, you know, Marty, Carolina reminds me a lot of the Boston Celtics in the NBA. They're the type of team that if you play individual one-on-one type of defense, they're not going to overpower you. But they're a team who loves to play in spurts.
Jump shot by Steve Hood. Rebounded by J.R. Reed after the tip from Scott Williams. Speaking of the Boston Celtics, Sam Jones, a former Celtic great and now a scout for that club here today. As Scott Williams gets a follow shot for Carolina.
Good rebounding by Carolina. Again, that's what they want to do. They'll beat you in spurts. They'll make you take a couple quick shots. They get the rebound and go off on the break a couple times. Now when you're ahead by 1 or 2, you take off, you're down by 6.
Offensive foul against Dave Dickerson. Tar Heels leading 37-35.
Here outside, you got Williams playing defense. Dickerson doesn't like to be touched at this particular point.
Well, he's committed the fewest turnovers of any of the Maryland starters as you look at Dave Popson, who's checked back in, but he's also committed more fouls, Dave Dickerson, than anybody on this Maryland team. Hunter makes his move. Pulls up, Lebo, baseline, and Popson draws a convention as he looks for help and finds it in Kenny Smith. Popson with a pretty good move, although he could not close the sale, and they say Maryland ball.
But what Carolina's now doing against that triangle and 2 is rather than rushing, trying to run their quick patterns, they're taking their time. The people in the post are taking the double team and now looking to swing the ball to the top of the opposite side because that's where the open people are. Maryland shooting 58% from the floor on 15 out of 26 shooting. Surprisingly, they have out-rebounded North Carolina. Foul against Derek Lewis, and that's his first. That is the one guy that you definitely want to keep out of foul trouble if you're a Maryland fan. They were up 10 at Duke last weekend in the second half when he picked up his 4th foul, went to the bench, and of course the Blue Devils came back and went on to post a win by 9. You had 2 men in there battling for position, J.R. Reed and Derek Lewis. And Derek Lewis, being the upperclassman, wasn't going to let himself give up any room. J.R. bags his second free throw in 3 attempts. He has scored 6 off the bench as the Tar Heels up their lead to 3. Roy Williams chatting with Dean Smith on the Tar Heel bench, and the lead now goes to 4 with 2:07 to go in the half. 39-35 Carolina. Getting back to that Boston Celtic comparison, here's where the Terrapins have to take their time and look for good shots. John Johnson for 3. Kenny Smith with a rebound. And that's not what we're talking about because the quick shot turns into the fast break. Carolina's running their secondary break, getting it in the corner, looking for open people to swing. You take a couple quick shots, and instead of being down by 4, you're down by 10. And then it's a new ball game. JR spinning, turning, tried to split Derek Lewis and John Johnson, and he was fouled on the play. Well, all the good things that Maryland has done here in the first half can pretty much be undone in only a simple matter of time. Right now, a minute 39, and Carolina seemingly has gotten things together. Well, Maryland's well on their way to undoing those good things, as you mentioned, Marty. They're starting to take quick shots when they need to slow the tempo, look for the good ones, and make Carolina play defense. They're also compounding these errant quick shots by coming down on the other end and creating fouls, committing fouls that aren't really necessary. Some substitutions for Maryland. Freshman Mark Carver out of Chevy Chase High School, Bethesda, Maryland. Lewis above the iron for the rebound, and Scott Williams has come back in replacing Dave Popson for North Carolina. You see Tayon McCoy calling out a play. Maryland has got to run a pattern right now. They've got to make Carolina play some D, run some time off this clock to maybe cut the game, cut this amount of time down in half. 3-point attempt. Ivan Powell buries one, and just like that, it's a 1-point game. And again, they changed the tempo, decided to run a pattern.
Three-pointer by Ranzino Smith. With 1 minute 8 seconds to go in the half, the Terrapins can regain the lead. Keon McCoy driving. Baseline jumper, Dave Dickerson.
Too quick.
Lewis has it. Lost it. And got it back. McCoy for three. Or is it? Nope, a two-pointer.
Too quick.
The ball goes to Scott Williams.
Maryland's now settling for that long outside shot, and at this point, they could have actually worked some more time off of that clock, cut down Carolina's possession time here.
There's Ranzino Smith, and he drops one in.
Not that it matters with Ranzino Smith and Mr. Offense there.
Carolina leading 41-38. The shot clock is off. 31-30, 29 seconds remaining in the first half.
Carolina's calling for that trap, but they're going to send two people at the ball as soon as the ball makes some penetration.
Ivan Powell open. Well, if you're going to put one up with a lot of time remaining on that clock, you better be sure it goes.
And that time, Ivan Powell had no choice. He was wide open. You have to put it up.
Carolina by a point. 7, 6 seconds, 5 seconds. Jeff Lebo, Kenny Smith launching with one. He did not get it. And they head to the dressing room as the Terrapin fans roar here at Cole Fieldhouse.
Good.
Bob Wade had a game plan coming into this one, and so far, for the most part, it has worked very, very well. The first 20 minutes are in the books, and the score at halftime. Carolina 41, Maryland 40. We'll be back after this message.
Welcome back to our ESPN studios. Tim Brando with you, and Maryland, as we told you at the outset, perhaps the best last-place team in America in the powerful ACC. Now, this is a typical Maryland showing. Close early. They even had the lead early, if you'll recall, when the two clubs last met at the Dean Dome, and then Carolina took charge after toying with the Terrapins for 20 minutes and won the game big. But Bob Wade's club has been oh so close, and you know that his club is due for a victory. We'll see as number 3 North Carolina leads Maryland by 1. Now, as we continue our halftime activities, we'll have highlights from around the country, bring you up to date on the top 20 teams in action on this big Saturday in college basketball. Stay with us.
Yes. Big news is that I made some very important big deals.
Excuse me, but there's one big deal you haven't made.
Yeah, right. Yeah. You see,
I'm talking about a deal on Sports Illustrated.
Sports Illustrated?
Yeah. A savings of more than 50% off the cover price. 27 action-packed weeks for 3 installments of just $9.79 each.
Kid, you're hip.
Hit! What about free videotape? The NFL Crunch Course. It's 43 minutes of the NFL's greatest hits. It makes a smashing gift, and it's free with your paid subscription. Free. Plus, you get their 87 baseball preview with schedule and their famous swimsuit issue. Major League! Just call a toll-free number. You can even use your credit card.
That's right. Get the savings, the schedule, the special issues, and the free Crunch Course tape. That's the big news. Any questions, gentlemen?
Where are the phones?
That'll be all right.
Sports Illustrated. Get the feeling.
Call now, 1-800-525-5...
Chevrolet announces one of the biggest values in automotive history. A 6-year, 60,000-mile warranty on new 87 passenger cars, plus $1,000 cash back on new Cavaliers, Camaros, and 2.5-liter Celebrities. That's cash back on the best protected cars in Chevrolet's history.
Long ago on the frontier, homeowners insurance meant knowing the cavalry was close at hand. That kind of protection was hard to beat. It still is. Today, Kemper provides insurance to homeowners, condo owners, and renters with a wide range of money-saving discounts. And you can count on professional service from the independent agents who represent the Kemper Cavalry. To protect your homestead, compare Kemper. You ride with us.
ESPN's college basketball, North Carolina versus Maryland, is brought to you by McDonald's. It's a good time for the great taste of McDonald's. At halftime, Maryland trailing North Carolina by 1, 41-40 from the Cole Fieldhouse in Maryland. Now, let's bring you up to date on the other games in college basketball, and we have a bundle today to tell you about, beginning with a Big Ten clash that meant a great deal, particularly to Illinois. They had lost so many close games in the Big Ten. And let's take a look now as the Hawkeyes of Iowa were given a rough time early. Weisinger finds Ken Norman for the layup, Illinois by 6. The Hawkeyes come back, though. B.J. Armstrong with the steal finds Roy Marble. He can't stuff it, so he passes it, sort of like volleyball. Back to Gary Wright. Iowa leads by 8 at halftime. But Illinois again regained the lead on this 3-on-1 break. Watch as Weisinger will pull up and bury the J. 50-49 Hawkeyes. Then it's again Iowa in this seesaw battle, hanging tough. Gamble steals it, finds Lohaus, puts it through, count it for a three-point play. Hawkeyes by 1. Down the stretch, Weisinger, though, did it all. This is a three-pointer, 61-60 Illinois. Then free throws gave the Hawkeyes the lead again, 62-61. Illinois goes for the lead. Aldenberger misses. Bardo rebounds, but is blocked by Lohaus. Lohaus rebounds and is fouled. And then Lohaus would hit 6 straight free throws down the stretch. He hit 2 free throws with 6 seconds left to put it out of reach. The Hawkeyes go on to win it by a final score of 66-61. Now, Illinois, after losing this game by 5, is about 20 points away from being unbeaten in the Big Ten. That is how tough that league is. Iowa, after losing to Purdue earlier in the week, could ill afford a loss today if they wanted to stay in the hunt with Indiana for the Big Ten regular season championship, and of course they have no tournament in that league. So Iowa comes away with the win. Elsewhere, Temple and West Virginia, and the Owls have the 40-29 lead at halftime. Purdue and Minnesota are underway. The Boilermakers lead the Gophers by 6. And Oklahoma and Kansas underway in the Big 8. The Jayhawks have the 3-point lead. They're playing at home. Billy Tubbs trying to come off a disheartening loss to Oklahoma State earlier this week. Louisville and Syracuse, look at this. The Orangemen blowing away the Cardinals. And again on a nationally televised game, Louisville getting bombed. This can't help them in terms of their quest for an at-large bid in the NCAA tournament, but in the Metro Conference with Memphis State out of it, Louisville could still come away with the conference tournament championship. They'll play that one at home. So, Clemson and Virginia also got together in the ACC today for what turned out to be a thrilling basketball game. Right down to the wire it went. Watch now as Mel Kennedy misses the jumper. Tom Sheehy will tip it in. Cavaliers lead for 41 minutes of this game. Virginia opens up. This time Sheehy with a great pass to Drew Kennedy. Cavs up by 8. Cliff Ellis not happy with his team's defense. In the second half, Virginia with some defense. Watch now. Clemson's Horace Grant rejected by Drew Kennedy. Johnny Johnson then will take it end to end. Pull up, stick the J, and the Wahoos lead it 72-68. Then 2 minutes to play. Mel Kennedy hits the tough running one-hander, draws the foul, 78-70 Virginia. But on the out-of-bounds play, Michael Brown will hit a three-pointer from way out, 82-80 Virginia. Then down the stretch, Kennedy misses in the lane. Clemson breaks out on a 3-on-1. Time running out in regulation. Anthony Jenkins will lay it in. We're tied. We're going to overtime. In the OT, watch the 7-footer. He's legitimate, folks. Horace Grant from downtown. And Virginia calls a timeout. They had no timeouts. That's a technical. So Terry Holland's club has to sit and watch Michael Brown hit both free throws. And Holland knows that is no way to lose a game. That's a well-coached team normally, and that's not the kind of mistake that the Wahoos normally make. So Clemson wins it. They have only lost 2 games this year for Cliff Ellis. The final again, 94-90. Also today, in college basketball, Alabama with a slim lead over LSU by a score of 52-49. We've got much more yet to come. In this halftime, the first of 4 big games on ESPN, the network for college basketball. You stay with us. This halftime report is brought to you by Mobile Super Unleaded, the high-octane gasoline with a plus.
This young woman is about to repair her own car. As you watch, she's actually fixing one of the biggest problems facing today's engines: clogged fuel injectors. She's fixing it with Mobile Super Unleaded gasoline. Its advanced detergent formula can unclog fuel injectors and give your car a new injection of power. Drive your engine clean with Mobile Super Unleaded, high octane with a plus.
My new Olympus is the only autofocus SLR with a built-in flash.
like this. In case I want to shoot, like this.
The new Olympus OM77AM, the only autofocus SLR that does it all.
Konica tough. Konica's Royal copiers are tough. Reliability and dependability have earned them a tough reputation. Konica's Royal copiers, the right choice for tough jobs.
We know this is the winner of your discontent.
United, we are temptation.
Don't despair. United's got just what you need. A ticket to someplace else.
We are temptation. Sing a winter vacation.
More low fares to more someplace else's than any other airline. Why fight it? Give in.
Give in to temptation.
Bus with shampoo and conditioner? Who needs it? I want to wash my hair and go. And now I can. With new Pert Plus. Complete shampoo plus complete conditioner in one bottle. Pert Plus leaves my hair clean, conditioned, and looking terrific. Before, to get results this good, I used shampoo and conditioner. No more. Now, with Pert Plus, I just wash and go.
New Pert Plus. Shampoo plus complete conditioner in one.
Welcome back at halftime. North Carolina leading by 1. Now, we told you about the Alabama-LSU score moments ago. Alabama in first place in the Southeastern Conference. They only lead the Tigers by 3. That game is in Baton Rouge. It's still a few moments left in that one. Florida could move into a tie for first place if LSU were to upset the Tide. They did it today against Kentucky at home. And Norm Sloan's club really playing well. And they're packing the house at Gainesville. The O'Connell Center waiting. And it was one half of the M&M boys getting it done early. Vernon Maxwell first comes out of the gates, drawing the foul. And Florida gets out to the lead. Then Andrew Moten, the other half of the M&M team, comes through with the layup. 31-27 Florida at halftime. Kentucky did try to keep it close. Sir Rex Chapman of Kentucky, the freshman sensation with the steal and the three-pointer. Kentucky down by 1. But Florida was not intimidated. They go inside. Watch Chris Capers pulling his own case of capers inside to spark Florida, now up by 11. Ed Davender keeps Kentucky close down the stretch, uses the glass well there, but Florida was in control. Moten looks like he's in trouble, but will recover to lay it in. The final, the Florida Gators 74, the Kentucky Wildcats 56. Norm Sloan's club now just a game out of first place pending the outcome of the LSU-Alabama game, which is coming down to cases in Baton Rouge. We'll continue with our halftime activities from the studio in just a moment.
This is my mom. And if everything I say about the four-wheel drive Isuzu Trooper 2 isn't true, may she be struck by lightning. It can carry a symphony orchestra or every book in the Library of Congress. And the nice part is the Trooper 2 starts at just $10.80. You have my mom's word on it. Mom?
See the affordable four-wheel drive Trooper 2 at your Isuzu dealer today.
Since you obviously can't taste a Score candy bar during a commercial, we'd like to show you what it tastes like. Score is one of the most luxurious, indulgent tastes imaginable. Sumptuous milk chocolate surrounding crunchy, buttery toffee. The next time you take a moment out during the day, make it a truly special moment. Indulge yourself with the rich, luxurious taste of Score.
3 years they've been training for one race and one goal. To bring home the cup. Budweiser is proud to have sponsored Dennis Conner and a crew of the Stars and Stripes in their quest to bring the America's Cup home from Australia.
A long way from home, but you're not alone, 'cause your country's home. I'll stay with you, you make America once again. This fight's for you.
There's a time to think about life insurance, and State Farm is there.
I'm State Farm agent Mike Callan. The biggest reasons young parents start thinking about life insurance are kids. Parents want someone who can explain life insurance and someone who knows how to listen too, so it'll fit their needs. And as a family's needs grow and change, They want someone who will be there to keep that life insurance up to date. That's why they come to State Farm agents.
And like a good neighbor,
And that's why they stay.
State Farm is there.
ESPN's college basketball, North Carolina versus Maryland, is brought to you by MasterCard. MasterCard International. Master the possibilities. Quickly, let's run through the college basketball scoreboard, bring you up to date on a few other key games. Florida State beating South Carolina today by 8. Mississippi State losing to Ole Miss 79-65. Wichita State losing to Bradley by 1 in overtime. Texas and SMU, that game won by the Longhorns. Bob Weltley's club a winner by 2. Let's go back now to Cole Fieldhouse, Lynn Elmore and Marty Brenneman.
With Len Elmore, I'm Marty Brenneman, and we are just about set to get the second half underway. Both the Tar Heels and the Terps have returned to the floor here at Cole Fieldhouse as we take a look at our Piedmont halftime stats. The bottom line numbers are the important ones, 41-40 Carolina, but take a look at them. Both teams, Maryland especially, shooting very well, Lenny, in the first half, and surprisingly out-rebounding North Carolina.
Well, Maryland's shooting, you may not expect it to be as high a percentage, but because you think that Carolina is going to create a lot of turnovers and actually keep the number of shots down. But you're right. Surprisingly, Maryland is rebounding with Carolina, even leading them by 2. Carolina has got an awful lot of big people on their front line to go after the second and third shots, and Maryland's holding their own.
Of course, Carolina, the best shooting team in the Atlantic Coast Conference, 54% as a club. So they, based on that number, not having a very good first half, 16 out of the 23 games, they have been 50% or better. As you look at the individual performers, Kenny Smith and the Tar Heels have had balanced scoring. 8 points. Ranzino Smith off the bench with 7. J.R. Reed with 7, and on down the line. Wolf Hobson and Williams for Maryland. The mainliner right there. Derek Lewis, a brilliant first half, throwing in 16 points and scoring them from almost every conceivable angle possible.
Well, you can bet that in this half, Carolina is going to pay closer attention to Derek Lewis, particularly inside. He'll see a lot of people inside when he gets the ball. Conversely, Maryland, recognizing that Carolina may have solved the problem of that triangle and 2, may come out with a few little wrinkles in that defense as time goes on.
Well, we can put the question mark concerning J.R. Reed's not starting the game. We found out from North Carolina Sports Information Director Rick Brewer, who stopped by at halftime to tell us that J.R. Reed did not start because he was late for the team bus.
Naughty, naughty.
Very stringent rule concerning being on time. If that were the case, our executive producer of Atlantic Coast Conference telecast, Michael Berg, he'd be a non-starter throughout his career. Dave Popson goes upstairs. Wolf got it on the rebound and rolls in.
That time, Derek Lewis kind of fell asleep under there when the ball went up. He stood around watching instead of blocking his man out. Jeff Wolf was Johnny on the spot. Joe Wolf was Johnny on the spot.
Heels draw first blood. It's blue, and they lead by 3, 43-40. And a whistle stops play as Lebo Hawking Steve Hood picked up the foul. And Jeff Lebo gets his first of the game.
Well, Carolina definitely will come out overplaying and really scratching and fighting for the ball. The first half, a couple of loose balls were on the floor. Carolina didn't seem as though they were willing to go down and get it. I guarantee you at halftime, Dean Smith mentioned that.
Well, Tian McCoy did exactly what that Carolina defense wanted him to do, and that was pick up the dribble. Hobson straight away, and the Heels have scored 4 unanswered points to kick off the second half. They lead by 5.
And this is another one of those 3 or 4 crucial spots in this type of a game where Maryland has to be sure to get shots. They can't turn the ball over, and they also can't allow the turnovers to turn into easy baskets for Carolina.
McCoy penetrates, bank shot goes. And that is something that I'm sure Bob Wade wants to see more of from Tian McCoy.
Well, he's got to be a threat out there. Otherwise, the Carolina defense can roam around and bother a lot of the people underneath.
3-point game, 45-42, make it 47-42 as J.R. Reed gets points 8 and 9.
Dave Dickerson has got to contest that spot from J.R. Reed. That time, J.R. Reed manhandled him and pushed him over.
Kenny Smith's defense causing Tian McCoy to kick it OB.
And now here's a timeout by Bob Wade, and I know he's going to talk about Theon McCoy.
There's where McCoy picked it up too soon, Lenny.
Well, against this double team, you've got to take the double team as a player. I remember the days we played, we didn't have a great deal of trouble with it, at least at home, because John Lucas recognized you back it up and try to go around them. You don't pick it up.
And John Lucas was in a class by himself. Timeout call. Carolina leads 47-42. We'll be back.
You know, life's too short to worry about impressing other people. I mean, have you ever been really impressed by a person's credit card? What matters about a credit card is how it impresses me. MasterCard gives me what I want, and anything is possible. It goes where I want to go. Could be Timbuktu. When I want, day or night. Don't talk to me about impressions. Give me possibilities. MasterCard. Master the possibilities.
Here comes 12,000 pounds of earth-shaking monster truck. It's Everett Jasmer's world-famous 1,000 horsepower USA 1. And when you need your vehicle to perform like a champion, you'd better get the tools champions use.
I rely on Master Mechanic tools to keep USA 1 running at peak performance. And you know, they're the same Master Mechanic tools you can buy at your local True Value hardware store.
My new Olympus is the only autofocus SLR with a built-in flash, like this. In case I want to shoot, like this.
The new Olympus OM77AM, the only autofocus SLR that does it all.
Don't just ask for a light beer.
A couple of lights.
Ask them to bring out their best.
Bud Light.
Bud Light, the less filling light beer with the first name and taste. As everything else.
Ah, last call.
It's just a light.
18:36 remaining in the game. Carolina leading 47-42 as J.R. Reed triggers to Kenny Smith. So the Tar Heels have a 5-point lead and seeking to extend it as Reed finds his man open inside. J.R. started to pass, hesitated, and then fired up BB inside to Popson for the slam.
Well, against that triangle in two, Carolina stepping a man up to occupy Derek Lewis and sneaking the bottom guy right on the baseline where J.R. Reed found him.
7-point lead for the Tar Heels. That's the biggest lead enjoyed by either club, and Popson came within inches of another Tar Heel steal.
Well, it's obvious that Carolina has stepped up their defensive pressure. They're overplaying people way out on the floor, and they're forcing the Maryland ball handlers to pick up the dribble far too soon.
Hood has that three-pointer go in and out, and as Dave Dickerson started back up, Kenny Smith gets him, his second.
Despite the fact that Dickerson got the offensive foul, good play by Kenny Smith and not allowing him to get the ball back up. It may not be a shooting foul. I guess they have called it a shooting foul. But at least they're going to make him make the shot from the line instead of getting the layup, and it doesn't allow Maryland to get that confidence, to get that momentum going.
Dave Dickerson, a good free throw shooter, 80.6%. Well, the one thing Bob Wade has seen a vast improvement in today, as opposed to Maryland's last game against Georgia Tech, is the scoring from the forwards. They got a collective 2 points, Dave Dickerson and Steve Hood, on a total, believe it or not, of only 3 shots in the 4-point loss to Georgia Tech. Dickerson has just scored his 10th point. Hood has scored 3. It is 49-44 Tar Heels.
Maryland's in more or less a man-to-man right now. They've started to overplay now. You got Derek Lewis overplaying J.R. Reed.
Nice break by Lebo, and as he shovels it up, he was fouled on the play, and Lebo will get a couple of shots.
Well, the difficulty with Maryland spreading or playing their defense, extending their defense, is you're going to get Derek Lewis out from underneath the basket, and that almost invites Carolina players to take the ball to the basket. That time, Jeff Lebo makes a nice cut. Here you see the inside pass. He cuts down from the side, from the top of the key, and John Johnson just didn't get to the spot in time, and Derek Lewis was forced to go from the corner to the inside to try and block that shot.
Lebo, the second most famous athlete ever to come out of Carlisle, Pennsylvania. And they say that another young man who has made his mark scholastically in basketball, Billy Owens, is going to be the next big name to come out of that town that Jim Thorpe made famous. Lebo gets his 4th point. Carolina again leads by 7, 51-44.
Carolina sensing the kill right now, decides to extend their defense full court Maryland has got to be wary. They let Derek Lewis bring it up, but they got to be wary of the double team, and there it goes.
Here's Lewis. He's tough.
Well, I don't know how he gets that shot up from his hip, but he does. And Tayon McCoy, again, anticipating the almost automatic pass to Kenny Smith from Joe Wolf, steals the ball.
5-point lead for North Carolina as Maryland tries to start the road back. McCoy has his pass intercepted by J.R. Reed. He leads the break. He gives to Joe Wolf, who kicks it back to Lebo. And he's fouled by McCoy. Well, he just reached out and grabbed him. And that's the third foul on Tayon McCoy.
And I tell you, Tayon McCoy makes the good plays. He's playing in typical freshman fashion, a wonderful freshman. But again, he picks up the dribble too soon on the offense and then comes on the other end and compounds it by fouling the guy ready to take the jump shot.
And especially when you consider it was a three-point jump shot attempt. Lewis rebounds and missed by Popson. John Johnson head faking, banking, got it.
Under control was John Johnson. Little dump pass by Derek Lewis. And Maryland is not out of this thing yet, and they don't believe so.
They've scored 4 in a row. 51-48 the Tar Heels with 16-3-0 to go in the game. Kenny Smith on the move. Scott fires. Knocked down, no whistle. Popson follows. He missed the quick shot. And there's Lebo faking the three-pointer and getting a step closer.
And you got to say something about Jeff Lebo's patience. He wasn't involved a whole lot in the offense in the first half, but he's the guy who recognizes when the shot should be taken, when the ball should be moved, and he's capitalizing on some big opportunities here.
Lenny, you really like him, don't you?
Yeah, I think Lebo's a very smart player. Obviously, he was coached by his dad and had the benefit of that knowledge, but he uses it well. And here's Derek Lewis with that hip shot.
20 points for Derek Lewis.
That's shooting from the hip, Marty.
At the other end. And Dave Popson came within an inch of getting nailed for offensive interference, and he pulled that hand away at the last possible second as the ball rolled over the iron and back into the basket. 55-50 Tar Heels.
And as long as Maryland stays in the man-to-man, that's the combination they're going to exploit.
There's another freshman mistake by Tayon McCoy, and that's critical because it's his fourth foul, coming with 15:33 remaining in the game. It is an appropriate timeout for Maryland. Bob Wade has to regroup. 55-50 the score. UNC. We'll be back after this from Budweiser.
Let's hear what consumers say about Consumers' Choice.
We found that Consumer Choice has the best price in town, and the quality of the merchandise is great. We've had no problems with any of it, and we've bought several items here. And the service people are very cordial, and we appreciate that.
The salespeople are knowledgeable. I got a great deal. The stereo sounds great, and they even sent me a thank you.
Nice, Tommy. When unexpected guests stop by, movies from Video Library are just the ticket.
Pink Panther.
In fact, Video Library has thousands of ways to entertain you and your special guests. Make your next get-together an instant success with Video Library. We help you see things your way.
55-50 North Carolina with 15:33. It's still up for grabs here at Cole Fieldhouse. And, well, after we saw one of those from-the-hip shots by Derek Lewis, the Tar Heels came right back down the floor, led by J.R. Reed, to get it done as we take a look at the move inside by the fine freshman out of Virginia Beach, Virginia.
Well, here's Maryland in a man-to-man, and as long as they play man-to-man, it's really going to be a mismatch. You see Derek Lewis coming over to help out Dickerson, but that's where Carolina's going to have to go because J.R. is just too big and too strong for Dave Dickerson inside.
J.R. has been instructed very well in his still young basketball career, first by his dad, then by his high school coach, Dick Potty, and, of course, now by Dean Smith.
Maryland back into that triangle and two right now. They figure they want to slow the tempo, change up on Carolina, and make them think about it.
Carolina backdoor play, and when Jeff Lebo tried to take it underneath. That's what created the problem as he was called for the charge.
Good observation, Marty. Lebo had the layup on the one side. Here he has the layup right here, but he decides to take the reverse. I guess he's thinking about Derek Lewis, knowing he's at the top and knowing that Lewis is such a prodigious shot blocker.
2 fouls on Lebo. So it gives Maryland a chance to cut into the 5-point deficit. There's a jumper by Johnson. Soft. Scott Williams rebounds, and the Californian kicks it out to Kenny Smith. He lets fly for 3. Lewis is there.
Narrod's going to have to run this offense for Maryland, not being accustomed to the point position. He's got to do the job right now.
Line drive by Lewis that time, and J.R. Reed had Dickerson and Steve Hood both on his back, and one of them commits a violation.
Well, one of the few times Derek Lewis is going to force a shot, but that time he really didn't have possession of the ball. It was kind of fumbled, and he still tried to put it up. Weak side was blocked out totally by Carolina, and J.R. got the benefit of the foul committed.
So with Tian McCoy on the Maryland bench with 4 fouls, Dave Dickerson is just in whistle for his 3rd. Foul, Greg Nard.
Well, Carolina's taking their time now. They're going to try to get this defense moving here. Maryland's playing that triangle, but as long as Carolina swings it, looks inside, watches the defense shift, they're able to pick out the open people, particularly the weak side big man.
From freshman to freshman, J.R. Reed to Scott Williams.
And that time was the strong side big man, which should not happen against that particular type of defense. The bottom guy just fell asleep.
That was truly coast to coast. J.R. Reed from Virginia Beach. Scott Williams from Hacienda Heights. Steal by Lebo. Lewis is back. Jeff says, why not go for 3? And the tip up goes by Williams, who now has spurted the Tar Heels out to a 9-point lead, 59-50.
And here's where that significant depth comes into play here. Maryland having a lot of trouble getting the ball up court.
Dickerson to Lewis. Foul. J.R. jumping all up and down. He didn't think he got him. The official, Jim Wright, was right on top of the play, and in his estimation, and his is the one that counts, he did.
And that's the benefit of going to the basket strong, because even if it's a close call, if you're the aggressor, particularly as an offensive player, you're going to get the benefit of the doubt.
14 fouls against the Tar Heels. Maryland has been hit with 5, and it's Lewis on the free throw line. He has scored today 20 points, and over the last 9 games, all he's done is average 21.8 points a game and 10.7 rebounds. He is just a fine, fine talent, and Bob Wade is very happy that he'll be back for 1 more year. Of course, you and I were talking yesterday, they get Keith Gatlin back next year.
And with the seasoning that Tian McCoy and Steve Hood are getting, Maryland is going to be reckoned with next year. They've got a fine nucleus. A couple of recruits will be okay.
59-52. Tar Heels, 13:35 to go in the game. Lewis now with 22 points, 9 rebounds. He's blocked 2. Joe Wolf a little bit long on the shot for 3.
Important fast break for Maryland. Narrod's got to establish himself as someone able to run the team here, and Maryland has to get a good shot.
Now, McCoy went out with 4 fouls with 15 minutes remaining in the half, and Maryland down by 5. The deficit now is 7. And Jeff Lebo, or make that Scott Williams charge with a foul, is first.
Knowing they have the good shot, Maryland swung the ball around the horn, looking inside for Derek Lewis, and Scott Williams and Derek Lewis got into a pushing and shoving match.
Ivan Powell. Double team. Nard. Nice no-look pass to Dickerson as the ball apparently was touched. Or he was expecting it to be, and put it up hard off the glass. 3-pointer by Kenny Smith. And the Tar Heels have now jumped out in front by 10, and they've done it in methodical fashion.
Well, they've played in some spurts here, but this time they've capitalized on 4 Maryland shots and also errant passes such as that one.
Wraparound dribble got away from Lebo, but it's picked up. Kenny Smith, J.R. Reed, and his second traveling violation called today.
Well, Dean Smith has jumped off the bench telling J.R. to keep at it, don't give up. but JR may be passing up some easy shots, trying to make the thunderous dunk. And in effect, he's maybe hurting himself just a little bit here.
That's the 9th time that the Tar Heels have turned the ball over today. Maryland has been charged with 13 of them, and the Terps with 12 minutes and 25 seconds remaining. Lewis has it batted away and picked up by Scott Williams. I'll tell you, Williams has played very well here. Another three-pointer. Or is it? Nope. Score 2 for Kenny Smith.
Well, the lack of an outside threat for Maryland right now is allowing Carolina to sag. They forced the turnovers by sagging inside, picking off the passes. They come down on the other end and score.
If there is such a thing as a propitious timeout, that's exactly what Bob Wade has just called. Time remaining 12 minutes and 8 seconds. The Tar Heels have bolted out in front 64-52. Stay with us.
My new Olympus is the only autofocus SLR with a built-in flash. Like this. In case I want to shoot. Like this.
The new Olympus OM77AF, the only autofocus SLR that does it all.
It's the dawn of a brand new day.
Introducing new Sunspray Coast. Same Great Coast leather, but a whole new scent.
Sunspray picks you up in a brand new way. Like the fresh, clean feeling of a brand new day. Coast picks you up and makes you feel alive. Yeah, Coast, feel alive with Coast.
New Sunspray Coast and invigorating regular Coast, too.
The Great American Face. Strong, sensitive. The Great American Razor, Atra Plus, solid, with a Lubrasmooth strip for extra protection. The Great American Face deserves the Great American shave. Atra Plus, only from Gillette.
12:08 remaining in the game. 64-52, North Carolina by 12.
And here's where the lack of an outside threat hurts Maryland, in that they're trying to penetrate to get within their range. And when they do penetrate and they're surrounded by people, the pass outside in an attempt to look for an open man is invariably knocked down or stolen by the weak side defensive player who's just slicing in looking for that pass.
You wondered about the bench scoring. Overwhelmingly, North Carolina's 26-5. The Tar Heels have outscored the Maryland bench, and those 5 points for the Terps all have been contributed by Evan Powell.
And that's just a vivid and graphic picture of the problems that the Terps have suffered all year. The fact that they only have 5 players, particularly, they can go to, maybe a 6th player from time to time.
Mark Carver, you notice, now back in the Maryland lineup. John Johnson, Derek Lewis. Johnson faked the three-pointer, and now Nard has it again.
And when you get a Carolina player, Carolina's in a 1-3-1 zone right now, but when you get them gambling and they run out of the play, that's the time when you have to penetrate and look for the open man.
Johnson. Boy, you talk about a pick-me-up. A three-pointer by John Johnson, his second of the game. It's 64-55, the Tar Heels by 9. Baseline, Joe Wolf. Rebound, Scott Williams. Lebo for 3.
Little patience has to be exhibited right here. Bob Wade exhorting his boys to hold on to the ball. Move it.
Nard picks it up. Kenny Smith shuts down the distance. And there's a steal by Popson. And deflected away and out of bounds by Derek Lewis.
That time, Greg Narrett picked up the ball in the corner, had no one to go to, and trying to avoid that 5-second call, just threw the ball up for grabs. That's something that the Maryland players have been doing all game. You've got to recognize against Carolina, particularly in the corner, you can't pick up the dribble too soon.
That's 15th turnover of the game for the Maryland Terrapins. Dean Smith, who has not substituted nearly as much here in the second half as he did in the first half, has just made a substitution. Ranzino Smith is in replacing Jeff Lebo. Scott Williams looking and plays in to Dave Popson. So the Heels by 9. 11 minutes exactly remaining. Well, Wolf will take the three-pointer. And Popson fouled as he picked off the rebound. Well, we've been informed we're going to get a big score, and that is a big score. Jim Boeheim and that Syracuse team routing Denny Crum's Louisville Cardinals by 30 points in the second half, 70-40.
How quickly they forget They forget Louisville's the national champ. There's no respect.
Back into the Cardinals.
J.R. Reed, after a brief spell on the bench, comes in to replace Scott Williams, and he gets congratulations from coaches and teammates. He's played well, as we mentioned earlier.
And Scott Williams has done a good job fitting into this Carolina scheme. He does a lot of things that go unnoticed, keeping balls alive, helping on the double team, and overall being a presence inside.
Thompson in double figures with 10. Carolina turns up the intensity. Carver, and they beat the pressure, but the bank shot doesn't get it, and it trickles out of bounds to Maryland.
And that's the point that we tried to make before, that when you get that double team beaten, when you get a defender running out, that's when you penetrate because the numbers are then in your favor. Carver did a nice job of dishing off that time.
Steve Hood. And a nice follow shot by John Johnson, sneaking in from the weak side.
John Johnson.
66-57. Reed with a turnaround. Boy, can he post up strong inside.
And as we mentioned before, you got Dave Dickerson at 6'6", playing J.R. Reed, who's a big 6'9", and that's just a mismatch. They're going to go to him anytime Maryland comes out in their man-to-man.
10 minutes remaining. Tar Heels by 11. 68-57. Mark Carver to Derek Lewis. Inside to John Johnson.
Maryland's got to play some defense at the other end right now if they're going to get back into it. They've got the ball movement going. They've got good offensive patterns being run, but they've got to stop someone.
Wolf for three. I'll tell you what. Try, and try again. And Joe Wolf drills one in to make it 71-59.
Derek Lewis roaming a bit on defense. Joe Wolf is his man, but that's somebody you just can't leave.
Thompson rebounds a missed three-point shot by John Johnson. Here comes Kenny Smith. J.R. scores again.
Tell you, that's the matchup that Carolina will definitely exploit in a man-to-man. You've got to send someone from the top when that ball goes inside. The only problem is Carolina's shooting has been so great from the outside.
And a three-pointer by John Johnson. Again. 73-62. Kenny Smith got at the top of his jump and had nowhere to go with the ball. A rare mistake by the All-American point guard for North Carolina. There's Dickerson. Double team. Kicks it back. Johnson looks good. Rebounded by Wolf. Hard tumble by Carver as he tried to out-battle Joe Wolf for the rebound, but he's all right. Go for three again, Wolf. The bank shot fails. Ranzino Smith spinning, hooking, got it.
Got away with a little carry, but a nice move, nice spinning move by Ranzino Smith, who got the rebound off the errant shot.
Carolina shooting the lights out here in the second half. They were under 50% in the first half of play, but getting it from a lot of folks. And right now, a timeout call with 8 minutes and 21 seconds remaining here at Cole Fieldhouse. The Tar Heels have bolted in front by 13, 75-62, and will return after this.
Why sit in the doldrums when you can ride the crest? Get the Atlantic difference. 8% on your money market guaranteed for 2 months. Call 1-800-4-ATLANTIC and make more money with Atlantic's money market. 8% guaranteed for 2 months. Call the Atlantic coast to coast for an 8% money market. The Atlantic, member FSLIC.
4x4s came in lots of shapes and sizes this year, but only one was named Best 4x4 of the Year. Nissan Pathfinder, honored by both four-wheel and off-road and four-wheeler magazines.
Best of the year in on- and off-road performance. Best of the year for interior comfort and function.
Award-winning ride, toughness, and style found in Pathfinder and every 4x4 we make. The 4x4 of the Year is Pathfinder. The name is Nissan.
Well, the cheerleaders are doing their level best to get the crowd back in it, but it has been pretty much all North Carolina, especially in the last 4 or 5 minutes. The Heels have jumped out in front 75-62 with 8:21 remaining. Maryland has gotten Keon McCoy back in the lineup after a spell of some 7 minutes on the Terrapins bench. He returns with 4 fouls.
And this is where they're going to make their last stand, Maryland. If they can't do it now with Tayon McCoy back in, they're not going to do it. But Carolina just substituted 3 people in there from a team that bumped its lead up to what it is. And when you've got a Jeff Lebo, Scott Williams, and Curtis Hunter to come back in and spell some pretty rested troops, you're in great shape.
I'll tell you one thing, Maryland looking three-pointer at the moment. Moving the ball around the perimeter. They've got 9 seconds on the shot clock. Hood pulls up from the baseline and drills it in.
Well, that's the man who has been conspicuously absent in the Maryland offense today, and he's going to try to at least get lit up tonight, right now.
Exactly right. That's only his second field goal today. He has scored 5, and the Terps are down by 11. 75-64. Ranzino Smith to Curtis Hunter. Scott Williams jump shooting from 15, and I'll tell you, he can stick it in there.
And another thing that I noticed, if you watch that defensive effort right there, Maryland is tired, particularly on that play. Again, Steve Hood came in with a nonchalant pass. No one was ready for Ranzino Smith sneaking in there and knocking away. But when you watch Scott Williams on his jump shot, Derek Lewis gave him token resistance. He's dog tired.
Wolf puts it up in a hurry off the inbounds pass, and there's Lewis climbing the ladder for the board. Ivan Powell under great duress. He can't play much better defense than Lebo was playing on him that time, and he still buried it.
Well, Ivan Powell is the counterpart, Maryland's counterpart for Ranzino Smith. He comes in the game, the coach wants him to put it up. Even he starts shooting from the bench.
77-66 Tar Heels. Curtis Hunter did not get the roll, and Scott Williams, I believe, yes, he commits the foul as he whacks Derek Lewis.
Well, here again, this is what happens when you're mentally tired as well as physically tired. You know, you don't take care of the ball, you don't meet the passes, but more importantly, you're not aware of what's going out on the floor. And I'm sure Steve Hood would like that one back, but it's the type of thing, especially when there's one person out there, you got to be aware of where that defender is before you loft a nice little easy pass like that.
On the line to shoot him for the University of Maryland is Derek Lewis, who has scored 22 points today. From the free throw line, 4 out of 6.
Derek Lewis shooting 1 and 1.
Marty, you can just look at Derek Lewis, look in his face and see the fatigue. He's had, for the better part of the season, had to carry this team alone, and he's doing an excellent job today, but it's just a case of him being worn out. He's got to battle too many people underneath.
Certainly doesn't affect his shooting touch. Boy, he can shoot it. 77-68.
Little full court pressure by Maryland here. They've got to do something to stop this flow of Carolina.
Dickerson on the J.R. Reed miss. Off the ball, banging around, Reed and Lewis. And I believe they caught J.R.
Well, J.R. and Derek Lewis, as I mentioned before, are 2 men out there. And in this macho world, everybody's battling for position, trying to get the upper hand. And when you get caught in the pushing and shoving match, Derek Lewis, being the junior, may have used the benefit of his experience to do the first shove so that J.R. would get caught with the second.
J.R., of course, 50 pounds up on Derek Lewis, 245 to 195. As far as Derek Lewis is concerned, that's not a factor. 9-point Carolina advantage with 6:20 remaining here at Cole Fieldhouse. Lebo, checked by Ivan Powell. The pass goes in to Reed, knocked out of bounds, and touched last by Lewis.
And just as soon as I said Derek looked a little tired on defense, he gets his second win. Made a couple of good plays back-to-back defensively here.
Dean Smith makes a substitution. Joe Wolf sits down. Steve Bucknall comes in.
Right now, Carolina's putting in the type of team that, one, will be able to handle the ball against any pressure from Maryland. Secondly, the bothersome types of players, the scrappy players like Bucknall and like Hobson, who are going to go after the ball each time.
That's what you call getting a garbage basket. Jeff Lebo.
Well, it may have been questionable right there, getting inside. Some people believe that Hobson got his hands on the ball, but the referee signaled good basket.
Lebo has 9 points. Carolina goes back up in front by 11, 79-68. And a steal by Bucknell. He leads Kenny Smith. He's off to the races. Scores.
Well, Tayon McCoy made the mistake trying to anticipate where the man was going. Carolina's weak side defense, as alert as usual, came over and picked up the pass. Carolina, when you make those types of turnovers, and you have your guards buried in the corner, they're going to turn it into 2 points.
5:27 remaining in the game. 81-68. McCoy for three. Nothing but net for Tayon McCoy, the freshman out of Hammond, Indiana.
10 points with 5 minutes left. They just won't go away.
And Kenny Smith, he has 18 as he hits another three-pointer with 5:10 to go. And the Tar Heels go up again by 13 at 84-71. Another off-the-ball foul against Dave Popson. And Dave just heads right on toward the Carolina bench to be replaced by Scott Williams.
Well, with a 13-point lead right now, Carolina's not about to sit on it, sit back in some type of defensive zone. They're still up there aggressively overplaying. Consequently, the foul was called against Popson.
Senior from Ashley, Pennsylvania, sits down, and the recipient of that foul, Dave Dickerson.
Shooting 1-1.
He's 2 for 2 from the line to score 10 points.
What is it? I got it.
And at the moment, Maryland missing some crucial free throws.
And they're also not getting the loose balls, Marty. The free throws have been the bane of Maryland's game throughout the day.
5:03 on the clock as we remind you the announcers for this game are approved and selected by Raycom Sports Jefferson Pilot Teleproductions. Any rebroadcast, retransmission, duplication, or reception of this broadcast without the express written permission of Raycom Sports Jefferson Pilot Teleproductions is prohibited.
Maryland back into a man-to-man right now with Derek Lewis guarding J.R. Reed inside. So they got Dave Dickerson off him, but Scott Williams is also about 6'10", and they may want to exploit that matchup.
And they'll go the other way. Kenny Smith unduly bumping Tayon McCoy for position inside. So Kenny Smith gets his third. I want to remind you of what's coming up later on our Atlantic Coast Conference Basketball Network. Tonight, 9 o'clock. They'll start it off, NC State and Bobby Cremins' Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets from Atlanta, Georgia. That's the Wolfpack and the Yellow Jackets tonight, 9 o'clock, live from Atlanta, Georgia. Hood with only 5 points. And as Glenn so astutely pointed out earlier today, he has, without question, been conspicuous by his absence. He has not helped the cause very much. 4 minutes and 27 seconds to go, and Maryland trailing by 13.
Here Carolina will run down the shot clocks unless they can get some easy shots inside. That time a fumble by Scott Williams, but you can see their intent. If you can't get anything easy inside, make the defense move.
Ivan Powell from long range, rebounded by Joe Wolf. And a foul on Scott Williams, apparently.
Well, again, with 13 points up, particularly a Carolina 13-point lead, you would think that this game is over. And I'll tell you, though, if Maryland had connected on a few free throws with the way the last few plays have transpired, this could be a lot closer game, but they just haven't been able to connect.
Dickerson shooting. Maryland has missed the front ends of a couple of 1-and-1s in the last couple of minutes. Not this time. Dickerson gets his 11th point. Dave Popson back in for North Carolina. Steve Hood sits down for Maryland. He has been replaced by John Johnson.
Maryland is a little less than average free throw shooting team, but one of the reasons that you do miss a lot of these things down the stretch is that because you are tired. And Maryland players, the 7 guys who have had to go out here and do battle, are probably really worn out here.
That's the reason that at all important depth becomes a factor in matchups such as this one here. JR straight away. And trying to get position inside Popson. He was fouled by Ivan Powell.
JR claps his hands in a little bit of frustration or even disgust. But I tell you, the one thing that he had done was pulled up and took the jump shot rather than put the ball on the floor and turn it over with a walk.
Well, you got two in serious trouble, Popson and McCoy. You've got some hanging on the fence. Reed, Smith, Lebo, and Williams for Carolina, and only Dickerson. 3 personal fouls for Maryland.
But if you're Carolina and you've got those big guys along the front line, you can use every one of those fouls because each one of them is capable of going in and doing an excellent job. So they can go out full force and play as hard as they possibly have to.
Hobson has 12. He's one of 6 Carolina players in double figures as their lead expands to 13, 86-73 with 3:50 to go. All by himself, Dickerson, as Maryland beats that pressure emphatically.
And it's interesting to me why even a press was thrown on, a half-court press here with what was before a 13-point lead. Carolina may be trying to change their look, but Maryland could have taken advantage of that type of thing earlier by throwing over the defense.
JR had to get out of that lane very, very quickly. He first wanted to put it up, then thought better of it, put it on the floor and got away.
Carolina.
17 seconds on the shot clock and 3:19 remaining in the game, and a whistle stops the clock on that foul by Derek Lewis.
Sorry, Marty. Carolina may have been more or less passing themselves out of this particular offensive sequence that time. They were moving the ball outside, but they weren't making any progress to the basket, nor were they holding and looking for the postman until that particular time, and Maryland bailed them out with a foul. The shot clock was running down.
Wolf on the line, and he's a good one from that spot, 86%. Senior from Kohler, Wisconsin, who has scored 11 points today. Maryland hoping to take advantage of the miss. Powell to Lewis. Knocked away by Reed. Good defense. Here is Kenny Smith in a foot race, and he whips Ivan Powell easily.
And the Maryland bench jumped up looking for the call. They figure when their best guy gets the ball inside and there's a swat at the ball in a game such as this, they should get the benefit of the doubt.
Kenny Smith has now scored 20 points to lead all scorers for Carolina.
Interesting call right there.
Sure was. They get J.R. Reed.
It was on the same exact play as the time down before. Derek Lewis got great position on J.R. Reed, got Reed on his back. The time before, Derek got the ball. Someone reached in and swiped it from him. This time, the ball went between both their legs, but J.R. was detected for the foul.
J.R. joins Dave Popson as those Carolina players with 4 personals. And another big miss for Maryland from that free line.
And this has plagued Maryland. It plagued them in the last game against Georgia Tech when they had an opportunity to at least tie the game. They missed the 1-and-1. And this is something that a tired team, as we mentioned before, this is a mistake that they'll make.
Well, they've hit only 13 out of 21 free throws. J.R. Reed telegraphed that pass.
He's lucky. Derek Lewis was lucky that time. He was trying to start the break, trigger the break himself after the steal, and that's something a big man can't do, particularly when a guard is on you. Jeff Lebo may have been a little too aggressive that time, but Derek Lewis would have been better off picking it up, looking for the guard, and then getting out and filling the lane.
Only 2 minutes and 33 seconds remain.
1-and-1, Derek Lewis.
Finally, the Terrapins connect on a 1-and-1 situation, at least the front end. If you count up the ones that they had missed in the last 5 minutes and combine that with the Carolina miscues, this would be a much closer game again.
Derek Lewis, 8 out of 12 from the line. 88-77, 2.5 minutes remaining. Kenny Smith cross-courts to Reed. As Maryland tries to turn up the defensive intensity now and hope to force some Carolina turnovers, it would result in Terrapin points.
Good ball movement by Carolina. They know that clock time is on their side.
Turnaround jumper by Wolf. There's Lewis with another board. His 12th rebound today.
Now's the time to look for the threes.
John Johnson.
That's
it inside. Joe Wolf dropped off of his man to deflect it away.
Now Maryland should be spotting up on the perimeters, exploring the inside, but being ready to shoot the ball from three-point range. Right now they need some big baskets to get back in this, but it's about out of their reach right now.
And the Tar Heels, as you might expect, are milking the clock. Minute 35 remaining in the game, 21 seconds on the shot clock. North Carolina will remain undefeated in the Atlantic Coast Conference. They will go to 11-0.
Maryland couldn't put pressure on the ball handlers of Carolina if they wanted to. They just don't have any energy left.
Well, J.R. dropped it off for Joe Wolf. The only problem was Wolf was looking at the basket, expecting that J.R. was going to put up the Springer.
Well, Marty, that's something I noticed when Maryland had pressed before. J.R. was at the top, jumped up in the air, made the pass to Kenny Smith, but he was fortunate. That time he made the mistake. It's a bad habit he shouldn't be getting into.
Maryland 11 down with time running out. 75 seconds remaining. Ivan Powell loops to Derek Lewis. One bounce, the shot airborne, rebounded by Jeff Lebo, and Lewis went down hard and a little bit slow coming up as he grabs his left thigh.
I'd say right about now is the time to get Derek Lewis out of there. I mean, he is the guy that's the key to your whole season regardless.
Good point.
And this game is about out of reach. It's time to substitute.
"20 seconds in the shot clock, 45 seconds remaining in the game. Lewis, contact, and he fouls J.R. Reed. Third foul against Derek Lewis, and Reed will be on the line as we again remind you that Jimmy Valvano will tee it up against Bobby Crimmins in that 9 o'clock start from Atlanta, Georgia. The Wolfpack trying to get back on the plus side of that one-loss column, takes on that rapidly improving Georgia Tech ball club, and you can catch all the action. Lewis leading with 43 seconds remaining. 26 points, 12 rebounds, 2 block shots, and hit 9 out of 14 from the floor and 8 of 12 from the line, and he had a good one.
Well, as we said, Derek Lewis is the hub of this team, offensively and defensively. Maryland can ill afford to lose him, but it's probably so frustrating to have to carry a team night in, night out. And he's getting a lot of enthusiastic help from his teammates, but some of them just aren't seasoned enough to really compliment him.
Three-pointer misses by Tion McCoy. JR leading to break again. Stolen by McCoy. And Maryland comes right back in a hurry. Three-point attempt by McCoy. Got it.
And that's what Maryland should have been doing about a minute and a half ago, considering the score right now. They explored the inside, but you got to spot up and look for those threes whenever you get the opportunity. It's a case of a little too late, too little too late.
Dean Smith calm as a timeout is called. The three-pointer by McCoy puts Maryland to within 9 points. And Bob Wade a little bit upset. He was arguing with Jim Wright as a timeout was called. Again tonight, Atlantic Coast Conference basketball, the Wolfpack and Georgia Tech live from Atlanta, Georgia. 9 o'clock the starting time. And, of course, the Wolfpack playing a very strenuous schedule this year. And what, they dropped 7 games in a row as they try to break that losing streak on the road against Bobby Crimmins and the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. That comes up tonight.
And you know, the dispute or the controversy surrounding the ease or the difficulty of a schedule and how that affects your team's chances for the NCAA tournament. You know, here's a shot where it may have backfired on Jimmy Valvano this time, getting a tough schedule, playing some teams that his team may not have been ready for, and now it's going to be a struggle for him to get an NCAA bid.
Well, he's had some big-time problems at that point guard spot. And here we go as play is quickly resumed. Carolina almost being caught on that new timeout rule being implemented this season in the Atlantic Coast Conference. And Bucknell, after releasing the ball, charges head-on into Ivan Powell and is nailed with his second personal foul.
Well, it's a 9-point lead, and on the other end of it, Ivan Powell gets a chance for a 1-and-1. But that's something that, you know, Dean Smith can't be happy with. Steve Bucknell bringing the ball over the 10-second line, which was necessary, but you got to be under control if you're going to do that. And Steve Bucknell did not look like he was under control.
Oh, the junior college All-American at Mattatuck Community College, Ivan Powell to the free throw line. He has scored 7. 21 out of 23 from the free throw line this season. That figures out to 91.3%.
Marty, you're not jinxing people anymore.
I know it. '89-81, UNC, 19 ticks of the clock remaining as Powell takes aim and lets fly. Powell stopping the clock with 18 seconds remaining. Carolina made some substitutions. Jeff Denny, freshman out of Rural Hall, North Carolina. Michael Norwood, the senior from Henderson, North Carolina, now in the Tar Heel lineup, joining Steve Bucknell, Ranzino Smith, and Scott Williams. So all the starters are done for the day for the Tar Heels.
Now, if Carolina makes these free throws, you can pretty much put this one away, but if they miss the front end of this, you know, we can see a pretty interesting ball game here. But that seems to be moot.
Academic. Mark Carver comes back in, replacing Andre Reyes for Maryland.
Got to give Maryland another three-point weapon out there. Mark Carver's got a good outside touch. He's capable of hitting that thing.
Ranzino Smith hits again. Powell for three. And John Johnson hammered, looked like Scott Williams. Went up and made the body contact in the battle for the rebound, and if they get Williams, that's going to be his fourth.
42 for the Tar Heels, Scott Williams.
Right now, the big people of Carolina, all they have to worry about is screening off the board, really. You know Maryland is going to be looking for the three-point shot. It's not so much necessary for you to guard your man all over the floor inside two-point area, but you got to make sure that you screen them off the board and not give them the second opportunity or foul them to stop the clock.
Johnson connects.
And I know a lot of people will say, well, the game is out of reach. But then on the other hand, these are good habits to get into, because there are times that Scott Williams is going to be in the game when the game really means something, and you can't get into these types of habits.
That makes it 91-84. Maryland scoring. The inbounds pass made by Carolina. The foul that stops the clock with 8 seconds remaining.
Fouls on Dave Dickerson, his fourth.
Smith, Dean Smith starting on his second half a dozen. This would be win number 601. Bucknell scores for the first time.
And if you look at Dean Smith, even though he's got this game under control, 8 seconds left, he's still out there coaching.
Substitution, Mitch Kasoff. As the free throw goes again. Here comes John Johnson on the quick drive. He lays it up. No good. 2 seconds. 1 second. The horn sounds as the shot goes by Ivan Powell. And that wraps it up here at College Park. Maryland again playing well, but in the end it was too much Carolina depth as the Tar Heels came up to win it by a final score of 93-86.
With a Lubra Smooth Strip for extra protection, the Great American face deserves that Great American shave. Atra Plus, only from Gillette.
Don't drink and drive. A public service message from ESPN.
Join us in celebrating one of the most exciting spectacles in all of sport, the National Collegiate Basketball Championship.
Let's be up, let's be ready, let's stay sharp, and at some point you say, hey, fellas, let's just go out and win this ball game. We have a chance to win the national championship.
I would have done anything in the world just to be a part of it. It was just like a dream come true.
It's just a great feeling. It's just so undescribably delicious.
Well, I'll tell you, it's kind of a sad moment.
Winning the NCAA championship is probably the finest thing that's ever happened to me since having a wife and a family and a mother and father.
ESPN presents the 1979 Final Four featuring the Penn Quakers, the DePaul Blue Demons, the Sycamores of Indiana State, and the Michigan State Spartans. Welcome once again to our look back at the Final Four. This time we take a look at 1979. I'm Bob Lee, and 79 perhaps best remembered for the two players who capped college basketball's 1970s and then went on to dominate and place their imprint on the NBA. Larry Bird of Indiana State and Earvin Magic Johnson of Michigan State. 79 saw the Final Four in Salt Lake City at the Special Events Center. Semifinals with Michigan State taking on the Ivy League champion Penn. Penn, the Eastern Regional champ, a record of 25-5. And DePaul, coached by the venerable Ray Meyer, matched up against Indiana State in the other semifinal. We will get to Salt Lake City. Bird and Magic, the 79 Final Four, right after this.
This buzz for all that you do.
It could be any time now.
No, Bill had to leave. Can I help you?
A friend is counting on you.
Need copies by 4:30. I'll cover it for you.
Not a word.
You keep on coming through, 'cause you make America work, and this one's for you.
Here's to you, Beechwood Age, for that clean, crisp taste that says Budweiser.
This Bud's for you.
They're taking breakfast by the hand all over the land. It's a fresh new way to start your day. Get your boogie in the morning on your way. Hey, McDonald's is taking to the highway, taking to the street with a sit-down breakfast when there's no time to eat.
Enjoy a fresh biscuit sandwich or hot egg or sausage McMuffin.
It's a good time for the great taste of McDonald's, taking breakfast by the hand.
Air Jordan. It's all in the imagination.
Miguel Mendez and his classmates are growing up on a very special island. An island blessed with palm-lined beaches, exotic tropical forests, and gentle trade.